We know nothing of our larger world. That is the only opening statement I can give on this. Per United States Naval Regulations 1990, Article 1129, all missions are required to give the necessary amount of after-action reports per the discretion of the command. I have been tasked due to my close encounter of the maritime kind, but I'll get to that. Originally, I would just keep this stock until certain advisor elements have told me to retell this the best I can for archiving purposes. If you're seeing this, you're either a senior DoD intelligence officer, or it's been declassified and posted to open source. We might have bigger problems if that's the latter. Some background to give context for this. Full disclosure, I'm Petty Officer 2nd Class Spears, a special warfare operator for the United States Navy for the last 9 years, popularly known as a Navy SEAL. I've been assigned to Team 4 for the last year and some change, Alpha Platoon. We all fall under Navy Special Warfare Commanders Group 2, based out of good old Virginia proper. Our main AO is South America. I've done time in with the Africa Group, Indochina. But let's just say, South America is the fun time region to be for many reasons, especially if you're in your prime. Alright, enough fucking about before my O3 writes my ass. He's our platoon commander, Captain Daughtery. He's from Dev Crew. A younger guy, but he's absolutely straight to the point. Get in, get our tasks done. Go home, get on the bird, get after it. He's rotated off the line to get some time as a CO.AG, junior officer in charge on another team, and you can tell he's dying to get back. Working with him is our platoon chief, Chief Murphy. Going into an organization with a famous last name, especially one that was KIA, is an easy way for you to get hazed. You can tell he's been dragged through the mud. Despite this, the old Bronx salt dog that he is has survived. He's from Dev Crew 2, Red Squadron, but only because I caught sight of the old native hit patch in his garage during a barbecue. He also carries the hatchet around too, and I ain't gonna be the one to ask if it's for show. Alright, there's the pertinent people in charge. Back to our AO. As much as shore leave with partying is fun, Team 4's AO isn't as slow as you might think, or we might want it to be. A large part of our mission set down there is counterinsurgency, which ends up directly assisting partner nations in dealing with narco activity. Many times, this means we go low profile, stack up with critical response teams, and almost always have to pull the heavier end of the weight by the end of the night. Sometimes, however, we get dispatched to conduct maritime ops with an SDV, SEAL Delivery Team, or SWCC themselves. Not that often, but it's not uncommon. Most times, it's boats. Once in a while, it's a sub. All of it to combat the trafficking of both drug product and human cattle that runs directly into the rest of the Americas. In terms of forever wars, it's at least a mildly noble cause to fight for. One thing you learn quickly about Team 4 versus 5, 7, and 10 is your intel is usually short notice. You're not allowed to learn much else beyond hard borders set by your intelligence packs, and the situation can evolve completely down to the last ounce by the time you get there. Basically, you never know what the hell is going on until your boots down and sending it. Nothing embodies that more than this mission. It was just past New Year's when we were spun up at the crack of dawn for a VBSS, a visit, board, search and seizure of a vessel that had lost communication with the mainland several nautical miles off the coast of Peru towards Chile. We got to our ad hoc talk for a briefing, coffee and caffeine rampant as we try to remain wide awake for what came next. A man only identifying himself as someone from the State Department greeted us inside of that plywood box fan shack, standing next to a Peruvian intelligence officer. The dude had swept back hair, sporting a 5 o'clock shadow and dressed like an accountant. The stress lines told me that he spent more time in country than home. That was enough to tell us to pay attention. The Peruvian would talk in his native language as the dude immediately translated to us what was happening along with his own input. The vessel was a Dutch cargo freighter, Amity, approximately 400 meters long, a control tower towards the rear, marked out of Thailand, that was set to transport foods and perishable goods to the Peruvian capital of Lima. At 22:14 hours several days ago, it missed its window to begin its route in and continued southwards, going deep towards the Chile coast. When attempting to hail it, messages responded with only static. The stress lines told me that he spent more time in country than home. That was enough to tell us to pay attention. The Peruvian would talk in his native language as the dude immediately translated to us what was happening along with his own input. The vessel was a Dutch cargo freighter, Amity, approximately 400 meters long, a control tower towards the rear, marked out of Thailand, that was set to transport foods and perishable goods to the Peruvian capital of Lima. At 22:14 hours several days ago, it missed its window to begin its route in and continued southwards, going deep towards the Chile coast. When attempting to hail it, messages responded with only static. Peruvian Navy contemplated sending a vessel to conduct a welfare check. However, a harsh winter storm made waters unsafe. Surprisingly, the vessel was still topside, and when a message got through, they played a recording of it as we all read a printout of the transmission. Amity responded, signaling immediate distress, saying, "We have been boarded. We have been boarded." Control personnel began to try and zero in on Amity's position as they gauged for more information. When asked about the size of the attacking vessel, Amity simply responded, "No opposing boat," and then followed up saying, "They have overrun the deck." The background sounds nearly drowned out the voice. Automatic gunfire could be heard. This caused a fair amount of confusion. My platoon commander especially double-took and eyed around. In what was less than 6 minutes, a massive freighter had not only been boarded, but had their entire top deck seized. The final message seemed to cap off the sour feeling of anxiety that was lurking, as in an all-too-monotone voice, the man simply said, "They can see me. I've been found. I'm going to die." Afterwards, the transponder turned off, making locating it difficult. That is when things got weirder. Amity was found nearly 40 degrees off their trajectory, several hundred nautical miles where they were before the storm. No other vessels could be located, even so much as a set of rogue rafts used by pirates. Pirate activity in the area as well is almost nothing. Cartels didn't want to mess with international shipping lanes, lest they bring down the hammer of Interpol on themselves, and things get messy. It physically made no sense that anyone could reach a vessel of that size in rough waves with no craft, no raft, and board with no clear motive. Locals were dragging feet for days without sending any response, citing rough conditions as an excuse to let the freighter collect dust. It's sadly more common than you'd think. Likewise, they pressured the US after the contracting agency responsible for the cargo was marked to be an American pharmaceutical company attempting to have them cut down through Dragon's Pass versus the Panama Canal. Chief immediately picked out something. If they were tasked to stop at Lima, why go through Dragon's Pass? The jaded vet simply took a long drag that killed half his sick, shrugging. "Good question." Captain Daughtery looked unimpressed. "So you're telling me their mess to avoid tariffs has us cleaning up their fiasco?" The state rep shook his head. "No, you're cleaning their fiasco. In approximately 2 hours, you're to board, seize and secure the vessel, and find out what's become of the crew." Would you believe this is one of the more positive interactions we've had with vets in South America? The entire thing was just eerie. When we met up in the team room, it was the captain, chief, myself and a few other senior guys. Daughtery exuded West Point confidence and clarity when he shut the wooden door and the water bottle used to counterweight slid down, leaving us in silence. I could see the dread behind his eyes. "So, cartel?" There was gunfire in the background. One of the other team leaders asked. Chief just shook his head in response. Daughtery, however, controlled the room. "Whatever it is, we'll go deal with it. Treat it as if anything else that could go intensely kinetic. An air infill isn't probable, but we will have some bird coverage. Spears, you guys will be going up the side by ladder, so make sure everyone's got their mass suit. The waves are reported to be very rough, so make sure we go out on an empty stomach. Keep your heads on, and whatever this is will be over by supper." If only it was that simple. MASS stands for Maritime Assault Suits, a gray waterproof suit specifically designed for Navy Special Warfare operators to use during boardings, dives, and other tactical inserts in and through the water. The gray used has also become fairly popular in the SEAL community. MASS gray is a common gear theme, and our platoon adopted it specifically for maritime operations. Within 15 minutes, we had checked each other's assault suits, tightened down the slop, gun or radios filled, rounds loaded. It's my personal opinion that human bodies have internal alarms to warn us when we're walking into certain doom. Back in ancient times, we would look into a cave and see a face that just wasn't right before getting out of there. A canyon that smelled of death. Now, I struggled to breathe even as the neck ring of my assault suit was fitted on and we were heading to the chalk. Maybe it might seem weird. An operator like I should be grounded, but spend enough time in the lifeless areas of the world, God knows where, doing God knows what, and you tend to be forcibly open-minded. Normally, an SDV team would meet with us, as SWCC usually prioritized dev crew. However, they were on site, ready to link up with us. We helped load their Zodiacs into the CH-47s, heavy-duty rafts with mounted weapons, the best you could get for lightboarding, and even then, they were a pain to be in. Daughtery was going to be on my raft, while Chief rode with the other. Even if dawn were a few hours away, the darkness mandated we wore our knots. Several radio checks came through. Chief chimed in, then the SWCC crew chief.
Craft is ready. Alpha 6 check.
The commander followed.
This is Alpha 6. Platoon ready. All packs green.
A night VBSS onto a lost freighter, in which an unknown force had somehow overtaken the vessel. Moreover, the distress signaler's final words stuck with me, even as the engines drowned out all the noise past my helmet's headset. They have found me. To be so calm in the face of death means resignation, or something else. None of them are good answers. But we had to figure out why it all happened. We immediately knew why an air landing was off the table when we got out there. The 47's rotors battled the harsh winds so much the whole damn Airbus was rocking back and forth. Even the commander gripped the overhead handle, glancing around under knots to ensure he had all his men. Soon, we opted to get into the Zodiac. There's a common thing in the open ocean. If the winds are rough, the waves are twice as bad. I braced myself as the front SWCC gunner ensured his leash was fastened, checking his rotary M137 as everyone grabbed onto something, even if it was each other. The crew chief signaled to the driver 3 fingers, then 2, then 1. In seconds, the Zodiac slid out, hitting the rough waves as we all bobbed. I don't know how they did it, but even if the first wave of water made me think we all went under, we didn't. It was cold. The sky was dark as the lights of the Chinook disappeared, leaving us to finish the job. In front of us was a dark horizon with a distant sunrise still hours away, the white phosphor of our night vision trying its best to give us some semblance. But the crashing waves kept us moving and blind. You know, it's easier to go to space than it is the Dead Sea. I know why. I hate the ocean. Ironic cause I'm a seal. But being out there with that primordial body of water salivating at the chance to engulf us. Thousands of ships have gone missing over the past centuries. Easy to understand why. Our second craft was to our 9 o'clock as we pursued, the IR strobes on our helmets allowing us to see where we were. The distant rotor of our air cover was behind us. From what I could tell and heard after, they were doing everything they could to keep up. I could see the front gunner of the Zodiac scan around, then stop at something in front. He followed up on the radio.
Primary objective, 1 o'clock. Adjust to 312 degrees.
I picked up. Through the horizon of man-high waves, I could see it. The massive form of the cargo freighter looming in the distance. No lights, showing that either power was out or they had gone dark. Neither was a good option. As we grew closer, the larger it got, the rougher the waves were. All I could think was, what the hell could brave these conditions and lay claim to that vessel that quickly? We passed the stern of the boat. SWCC opted to center around the port side as it was the closest. Other craft went opposite. Despite the height of the boat, it was nothing we hadn't done before. 2 of our guys prepped the ladder prong. You want to know why VBSS sucks? The ladder, you know those small single-person ladders you see at cheap carnivals? The prong has one of those attached. Once it hooks, it's secure onto the edge of the vessel. We then proceed to climb it, in 90-pound gear, in the dark with rough waves, under night vision. Oftentimes, assailants would commence an attack seeing as we were vulnerable, and we would rely on support craft and air cover. For all our training and equipment, it was a dangerous job, one that made my stomach sink as the cold air and water doused us. The dark vessel loomed over us, nothing but shadows where there should be some sort of warning light. Knowing this had been left captured for days only made the feeling grow stronger. The gunner scanned around. A few of us noticed the rear of the ship, the lack of broken waves. One of our guys called in.
Propeller is down. Ship is adrift.
We got to the port side, the SWCC crew keeping us steady so as to not get us all pulled under. An absolute death sentence when beside a monolithic hulk of metal. The tension rose. I don't know why, but I felt like everything was watching me. As we all kept our barrels trained, on every shadow, every ledge, Not from the ship, but from the waves. I opted to go first as they secured the ladder. My captain gave me a pat on the shoulder as I climbed. One of our guys and a SWCC member kept the ladder steady. Even then, the thing shook like hell as I slowly climbed, praying it wouldn't give away. All the while, I could feel a burning sensation of something zeroing in on me. Through my headset, I could hear Chief call in.
Bird says no packs visible on deck.
If it was a raid several days ago, they're long gone. If they're still here, they're likely to be held up inside to avoid superior firepower. I drew my pistol as I got to the top, my glove death gripping the metal ledge as I pulled myself up, quickly transitioning to my 416 as fast as I could. I got that laser up, safe under my knots, hoping it would give me some sort of advantage. You think that's what old school sailors said? Harpoon in hand before meeting the Kraken? I quickly tracked the second guy up, and we stood back to back, 180 degrees of security on both sides as the waves bobbed. Something wasn't right, even if it had been several days under harsh winds. To arrive on a ship that meant dead empty and silent meant death. Or worse. Soon, a bunch of us stacked up against one of those containers. Daughtery and another took one group as I took another.
Secure top deck.
Came through the headset, crackling from the moisture. It's all we needed though. I quickly learned my condition wasn't the only case, as those next to me were all too ready to get going. We pied each corner, some pushed along down the side of the ship, as I continued to cut through the middle rows of containers as we looked. Any of the shadows could contain an enemy, an AK prepped, safety off, waiting to dump a magazine into any of us. That thought kept adrenaline high. Despite this, no bodies, no life, nothing. Just the crashing waves, the groan of the ship. It made it loud, distantly loud, yet closely quiet. As soon as I cut to the starboard side, slight movement to my right caused me to raise my barrel. My pack laser met another.
Blue starboard,
is what we quickly called in. Chief's Zodiac linked up with ours. Murphy himself was the one to link up with me as our combined force pushed towards the front of the ship. He used the headset since attempting to hear with crashing waves was nearly impossible.
Any up for or crew? Negative.
Then, one of the team leads on my craft called in.
Reached the front of the vessel. Located forward antenna. Completely inoperable.
Chief and I made our way there as the middle portions of containers were slowly, deliberately cleared. All of us slipping, attempting to keep our balance on the dark vessel. At the base of the front antenna tower between two stacks of containers that creaked and groaned with the shifting of the dead ship, the console was completely gone. For reference, it would have been the redundant backup to assist long-range communications in case there was a malfunction. The system itself weighed nearly 500 pounds and should have been bolted down. Should have. It was gone. Broken metal under the bolts still in the ship meant it wasn't unfastened. It was pulled off. I looked to Chief, who just stared at the spot, his hand moving to his PTT.
7 to 6.
Daughtery responded.
Go for 6. Forward communication system has been pulled off. No sign of it.
There was a pause as the platoon commander came through in response.
Say again last. You said pulled off?
The bafflement in his voice mirrored our own.
Correct. Bolts still on deck.
Chief then leaned down on a particularly large piece that had a jagged edge. I could see some sort of substance. I kneeled down with him. It was strangely congealed, like blood, but not. We'll get to that later. Strangely, the water splashing all around it didn't seem to move it one single bit, like it repelled it. Daughtery answered back at this point.
Copy. 7, leave a small unit to maintain presence on deck with bird support. Bring the rest of the unit to me. We found an entry point. How copy?
Chief shut up, flicking it off his mechanic's glove.
Roger. En route.
4 were left to keep watch on the deck, as the rest of us hustled as best as we could over a slick deck towards the main tower at the stern of the ship. We had captured the deck, ready to move in, and yet I wasn't locked in at all. I seemed to space out, my attention drawn to the waves. That's where I kept feeling sized up from. Since I grabbed that ladder, and underneath the crashing sound, I could hear talking. It was indecipherable. If you put a gun to my head right now and told me what was said, I'd tell you to pull the trigger cause I do not know. It was welcoming, however. That's the worst part. Like it wanted to pull my gaze and I don't know why. I shook my head and focused on anything else. The cold, the moisture, the exhaustion, and the heat inside of the mask suit. That's what knocked it off. One of our guys' lasers immediately deviated, pointing towards the waves. As he was right behind me, I adjusted and looked out with him. Shit felt nauseating. Chief barked back.
"Fuck you doing?" "Swear I saw a light sheen from the water, aimed right towards us,"
he said. We kept moving as he moved his laser back. Chief keyed in.
7 to escort element. Reported possible man-made reflection in water on starboard. How copy?
Through all the crashing waves on his side of the radio, we heard the crew chief of the SWCC raft on that side.
Copy. Maneuvering.
Their IR strobes could be seen as they began to scan around, their tension being met by their M137 minigun. My money is on the M137. We got to the entry point where the commander had his force stacked up. Approaching the hinge site, we could see it, a large bulkhead door that was swinging freely, unable to relatch or become secure as it had been mangled. So coming from an experienced breacher, they'll leave marks, obviously. Pry bars and ledges will make obvious impacts. Welds and thermite will of course melt the metal. The door lock wheel, the edge of this 3-inch thick door was bent, not from a massive tool, but from sheer force. The paint wasn't even chipped, not a single bit. The solid metal of the wheel as well had been bent like it was taffy, like you left plastic in the sun for too long and it melted and bent under its own weight. Standing there in the rain assessing this, the white noise of the ocean broken up by every free-swinging clang it made. It was uncanny. That's how a lot of this felt. Unnatural. Variables that shouldn't exist. And dread that came from a situation where we knew none of us had ever been. That's the human instinct I mentioned earlier. In territory you don't understand, with something you're not made to fight. Yet, here we were. Chief signaled a breach, and we pushed in. A team went in first, and it was now or never. 2 barrels leading, as one of our guys had to pretty much shoulder-check the door open to prevent the 200-pound hunk of metal from taking out one of our shins due to the damage it was free-swinging. With the ghostly absence outside, you could be forgetting about the remnants of the overtake, the gunfire in the radio transmission. I did. Once we poured through, it all came rushing back. Metal furniture was destroyed, far more than any rocking of a ship could do. Counters were cracked as signs of a struggle were clear as we secured what was a large common room area. No signs of gunfire, no brass or impact holes. Yet, blood smeared the floor, red, and it led out into the hall. I stacked up with one of my platoon members. I squeezed his shoulder. Adrenaline skyrocketed as we pushed into the hall. It's one of the most definite ways to die in close quarters combat. And yet, nothing. Doors, some open, others closed, greeted us as we controlled, and I stuck to the right side. Our lasers centered on someone. A body, slumped at the end of the hall with something protruding from their stomach. Under knots, I couldn't get a good look from our end. Our guys quickly followed us in as we split up, searching the different rooms, shouting, "Americans entering! Make yourself known!" The purpose of a VBSS isn't extermination, it's boarding and rescuing. Even when fighting combatants, we're told to, unironically, shoot to wound so we can capture them for intel. Nothing. Nothing but that body looking at me as our guys poured down each room as I and the man on my left kept security forward, as we slowly inched with every advance our guys made to the left and right. Soon, we reached it. It was a smaller man, slumped forward with his whole throat just. Let me put it this way, I could see his spinal cord from where I was standing. His eyes were punctured. Still there, I could see the chunks of what was left, but something had stabbed deep inside them. The object I said earlier made itself known. Some sort of spear-like implement that at first glance looked like petrified wood or something to that nature, as white and enigmatic as marble, but much more coarse. I motioned for him to cover me. He kept his 416 trained on the man as I searched him. A grey polo with Zephyr Evo on the right side chest, embroidered, and the thing had gone clean through his sternum and was inside the wall behind him. As our guys searched this area, I heard over comms.
"Got 2 KIA in here. 3 bodies in here. My element has found 2 additional."
Some of them crew, others the Zephyr personnel. all seemingly killed and left to rot. Boy, did it fucking smell. It didn't hit until after the adrenaline wore off a bit, but it reeked, combined with the moisture and some of the bodies had bloated. We pushed upstairs, clearing out latrines and other rooms, and found some more dead in similar conditions, but no signs of fighting. We reached the bridge around 0250. Forcing open the door, we quickly got our points of domination and focused barrels on the center. Not much was destroyed, except for the wheel of the ship, which had been half torn off the mount, and the communications console was completely caved in, a substance coating it, similar to the one on the front comms. Chief noticed, and as we were inside, we took a white light to it. Dark blue, almost looking like paint with a reflective inside. It was gelatin to the point of high density. Droplets led from an angled part of the broken comms unit out of the room. One of our guys asked, "This some sort of coolant?" Chief wiped it off on the edge of a counter. "Nothing that I had seen." Suddenly from below,
Alpha 2 to Alpha 7. I've got confirmed movement below.
the speed in which we took off down those stairs would rival Usain Bolt, many of us breaking safety and skipping steps as we stacked up alongside our second squad. Chief quickly moved in behind.
What you see? Alpha 2.
The E5 leading second squad kept watch down the stairwell with his men as he whispered,
Something moved out. Think it was one of the attackers, as they didn't respond to our callouts. It took one look at us, and I could see their eyes shine before they rushed to the left side of the hall through the middle floor.
Captain Daughtery clarified.
Reflected? IR?
A2 shook his head.
No, didn't give off an IR shine.
I don't think I need to state this, but people's eyes don't shine, especially against an IR source. The PL got on comms.
Up for possibly located. Signs of PEC and not usage. Proceed with caution.
From here on out, we limited our lasers and tightened up discipline. We carefully moved down in a split stack straight into the hallway, approaching the first set of opposing doors as 4 men poured into each side. As we moved forward, and they called,
Room clear.
We heard it. The silence was broken, causing a visible jump in all of us. A shrill growl, like that of a rattlesnake hiss, but with major reverb behind it, came from our front left. A huge amount of thrashing came as we could hear it flipping furniture and file cabinets, the type of racket that spurs up your fight or flight. It did for us. I heard the click of everyone's safety. We could hear it back further towards the stern. I say file cabinets specifically because one tipped and came flying out into the hall and laid across it. The huge slam, the slight echo, and the quick return to silence.
Up for located. 10 o'clock. Maneuver.
Chief ordered as I and a few others moved into that left room. Daughtery could immediately be heard.
This is 6, en route with an element.
What greeted us was a common-sense sleeping quarters that had a torn-up couch gutted. Yet, no figure, as we scanned the same substance from before that could be seen drenching the floor before hitting to the back. We moved towards the door and continued to see it in the hallway connected to a large back storage area. We scanned the room with our lasers, lassoing with others from the main hallway and what I believe was the rooms on the right before signaling a joint entry. All of us pushed in, quickly clearing under desks and in between shelves, a labyrinth between us and whoever else was in here. So many of us had to switch to pistols for better aim. I had to. Cover me, I told the guy behind. He chuckled with a crazy motherfucker. My sidearm was a P226 Mark 25, a reliable weapon. Luckily, the Surefire attachment had an IR flood along with its normal flashlight. I took the lead as I squeezed between shelves, following the trail like breadcrumbs as I could hear our guys on the other side move as well.
See anything? Negative. Continuing search. Stay sharp. There's so much fucking dead space.
I managed to squeeze my 200-pound ass through enough to search. The trail ended through a pile of collapsed chairs. As I followed it and scanned towards my front, a set of black, deep-sea eyes greeted me. A smooth form with a bump where I would have gauged its nose was. A mandible that hung open with hundreds of razor-thin teeth and hideous gill flaps underneath it. It lurked between an opening, sizing me up as it stood a hit taller than me. Lumpy skin with periodic spikes, frills that made my skin crawl, and webbing between its all-too-long fingers and feet. I also learned what the term bioluminescence means, because it gave off a dark blue up the main arterial routes towards its torso. The thing paused, a large wound where its shoulder was, as the substance leaked out of it like molasses. I stood there, my throat clenched in fear as my barrel shook slightly. I was staring into the eyes of something that was more ancient than the trident I endured so much hell for and to serve with. It could tell, as its flaps and gills seemed to twitch. It roared. The shrill yell from before was much louder. At the center, what sounded like a man, yet drowned out by a high-pitched whine that made my ears ring. I cringed as it leapt, my barrel aiming as it was all too quick, its jaw seemingly opening wider as it slashed and its arm dragged the whole cabinet with it. Its razor-thin claws got stuck in the nylon of my plate carrier. My finger pulled the trigger and began to fire off shots. Rounds impacted the chest, and I could see a splash. And yet, it kept staring. It thrashed, lunging forward as its claws made contact with my skin. I cringed as it pulled the whole damn cabinet down with it and onto me. Meanwhile, my headset was going off the chain.
What was that? Who's letting rounds loose?
As my backplate hit the ground, I stomped down and took out one of its legs, much thinner than my own. As my offhand grabbed its shoulder and pushed it off, I felt its claws slide out of me, a feeling that chills me now while I'm writing this report. The thing bit down and gnawed on my night vision, and I got an all-too-visceral look at its throat. Thorny spikes that looked like the esophagus of a leviathan lined a scaly interior. Behind those hundreds of teeth were rows of dozens more, all chewing on my 50 grand GPN VGs that were protecting my head more than my helmet was. That's when I could only describe as an IR flood from the others bathed the creature, a setting on the pack laser that acts like a flashlight for night vision. With me and the thing intrinsically coiled together, I tried to kick it away, only for it to use me as a launch pad. It slashed my right arm, adding to the puncture in my left shoulder, and one of its spiked feet tore through my pants, opening up a gash on my thigh. I rolled to my side, messily pulling my sidearm to see it close the distance with my boys. With all of us so close together, they couldn't just let loose, or they'd risk catastrophic fratricide. Somehow, even with what I then knew was its blood gushing all over, it took several rifle rounds. The captain especially, as I saw him bare his teeth in anger at the thing, one of its hands slashing across the front of Daughtery's plate carrier, his front plate saving him even as he slipped back from the force into several others. Despite this, the captain roared as he cracked off several rounds, visibly tearing into the thing's ribs. I pushed myself up, my body screaming in pain as I fumbled to slam my Glock back into its holster. I shakily held my rifle, adrenaline being the only thing allowing me to move operationally as we pursued. Chief lit up comms with,
Op 4 sighted, one making a run for the deck. Cut off entry point.
The distant sound of the open door above being closed, leaving us in contained silence as we all slowly pied the corners. Chief and I and several others carefully maneuvered through. My knots scratched to all hell, but I kept going. "You good, Spears?" Chief asked. Truthfully, I felt like I hugged a wood chipper, but I wasn't going to tell him that. "I'm good." Soon, we heard it, calling out, the same way an animal does to its pack when it's cornered. Elongated, desperate cries from deep within the bowels. We moved forward towards the front, ducking below pipes and equipment, our lasers scanning every corner point until we got to one of the lowest points. We opened a bulkhead, and a foot of water came sloshing out. Chief quickly warned,
"This is 7. We've got a possibly integrity breach near middle hoppers."
Was it trying to escape? Did it escape? We pushed through, our movements no longer secret from the breaking of water. Still, as we turned the corner, against the metal wall, we could see it. It had one of the fucking 2-inch thick metal floor plates peeled back at the corner like a damn can. It was trying to escape, trying to very literally crawl into the hopper. As it turned to look, it truly looked like something that crawled out of the deep. Even if the waters was just a foot deep, it seemed to move faster when it withdrew and faced us. The sludge it was bleeding floated atop the water. It made a low growl, knowing it was cornered, and then moved towards us, sliding unnaturally fast through the water as I could see its claws. We opened up. Fuck shoot to wound. We were shooting to survive. All of us backed up. My back hit the wall as I could feel my wounds sting, as myself, Chief, and several others quickly shot into that thing. Holes opened up. More of its blood leaked out. I could see its jaws opened up, and it growled. A round shattered its jaw, another through its face. Then, it grew still. The ship rocked as we all stood there, taking in the situation as Chief quickly took control.
7 to 6. Op 4 is down. Securing hoppers.
From there, seizing of all materials and evidence was had, along with consolidation of any and all casualties to be collected by higher authorities. Surprisingly, there weren't many others. Daughtery's carrier protected him. I got the worst of it, second to one of our guys on deck. It was during the fiasco, down to the second I had seen it. According to his second on his side of the ship, he stopped and just stared out at the waves. The only thing he said was, "You hear it?" Transcript provided read, "Hear what?" A3A asks A3S as he seems to stop, flicking up his knots as he stared into the darkness and took a step forward. A3A, now thoroughly freaked out, visibly cocked his head and asked, "Hey, you alright? The fuck you here?" A3S then, according to the ISR footage from the bird, tore off his IR strobe on his helmet and walked off the side of the deck into the ocean. A3A immediately yelled into comms,
"Overboard! A3S is overboard!"
56 hours of search and recovery provided no information as to what happened to him. Unnerving. As the CWCC teams were immediately on and scanning the waves where he dropped mere seconds behind the fall, only evidence of him was one of his boots, found over 1,000 nautical miles at a port in Tiruá, Chile, a distance impossible for any simple drift within that time frame. How did they know it was his? One of his teeth was found inside. Dental records matched. Officially, he was lost during the VBSS initial boarding. In reality, something coerced him in. We were all kinds of torn up, unsure as to what had gone on. However, we finally got an extended after-action report 3 days later. In the interim, I had been given a serious amount of stitches, enough military-grade fentanyl to make me forget I was cut open like a deli, and we were all brought to a much more classy FOB in the Central Pacific. The State Department rep from before greeted us, this time in jeans, a polo, slick back hair. He walked in and set down a stack of folders, telling us, "Take one, pass it left. Gentlemen, I'm sure you're all aware of what you saw in the Amity." Chief chuckled, quipping back, "I'm guessing we're not supposed to say nothing? Maybe a pirate? That's what killed one of our guys and slashed up another?" He patted my good shoulder. The state rep instead lit a cigarette. "No." This caught Chief off guard. I could tell because of the silence and single eyebrow raise. Very rarely is he ever there. He flipped open one of the folders. Page 5. We did. It was an autopsy report. I could see it in its full detail. A dark blue color, the layers of flesh and some skeleton that looked like a cross between a Neanderthal and a frog. What you encountered aboard the Amity is known within the community as Populus Aqua. Current origins are theories based off cryptozoology with none yet proven as concrete. Many different subspecies exist, one of which being Qui Tenebrosa Aqua, people of the deep. That's what you found aboard that Dutch ship. The absolute certainty of what he was saying, even as we were seeing what looked like images from some shitty sci-fi movie, was surreal. I knew it was real. Hell, it made me bleed. Took another one of our guys. It had to be real. So, one of our gunners who was sitting near the back, awkwardly eyeing the picture of the cut-open sea demon, sit back to the man. "Mermaids? In the popular modern sense? No. In fact, it's debated if they're even related to humans, beside their bipedal usage of hips and similar limbs. These things predate written history and are seen on ancient carvings everywhere from Jerusalem to New Zealand," he said. He flipped a few pages. "Check page 11 if you want more on that." What was their intent for this? There's got to be some follow-up, or we would be told to keep calm and not talk about it, Daughtery said, leaning forward on the table. The man nodded. Correct, you would be. The attack lines up with several others that have occurred within the last few months, all from this species. They usually remain below crush depth, as seen by their physiology. But if not only come to the surface, but are attacking ships, you are the first operational unit to encounter them and confirm their existence. Chief leaned back. So you knew what we were getting into and gave us the narco shtick? The men, however, didn't relent. I had a theory. I sent you in there with the most actionable intel. You found an anomaly, Chief Shane Murphy. What happens now is up to the intestinal fortitude of you and your men. That being? The captain asked. We believe now that we know the species and a fresh example of how they attack ships, we can better coordinate and anticipate their next moves. Your unit is the most experienced, having not only encountered, but killed one. Some losses, yes, he said. Chief didn't like that as he sat forward. Some? That was one of my fucking men. The man fired back. Yes, one of several hundred that have been claimed and written off as storm casualties. You want to curve that number? You're being assigned under me to help hunt down and stop these intrusions. Together, we are going to close the distance and get to the bottom of this, he said, taking a long drag. This is when I finally spoke up. Who might you be? Special Agent Miller, he said, locking eyes with me, the cold death stare of a man who's done more than a few questionable things for his country. I'm part of a special joint task force. Working name is PEXU. No dossier. Consider it like an Omega deployment for the guys here who've been around the block. I've been assigned to see the violent conclusion of the Qui Tenebrosa Aqua. The pages of his file are lined with reports. Missing people dragged to the depths, others torn to shreds with the autopsies all matching the same thing that nearly gutted me. Do we have an easier name? One of the other squad leads asked. Miller rolled his eyes. Common term is merman. However, the moniker used everywhere from Mexico to Turkey is sirens. Two of the first written examples credit it to the Irish and Greeks. Gentlemen, it may seem fantastical, but the reality is anything but. In the 1970s, a British military sub was nearly downed by a group of these. See page 18. Truth be told, I did. HMS Dreadnought S-101. Severe damage that ruptured the body. If they could do this. Daru was taken aback as he inquired. So what? They did this with their hands? Miller shook his head. No. Weapons similar to those found in your raid. Page 6. I flipped back to see the same spear that was stuck in the man. A full image with notes. I could hear Miller detail. Whalebone. Carved and fine-tuned. You know how tough whalebone is, Captain? I'd say very tough. With the right force behind it, it could puncture steel. So, is everyone taking this seriously? The agent asked. The silence of 24 SEALs, all staring intently, was his answer and the respect he wanted. Good. Get some rest. Don't wander too far. We've got another objective. I'll be in touch. With that, he just picked up his file and walked out, leaving us to grieve and our minds to wonder about the future. We've been convening amongst ourselves. This is completely out of the realm of anything we've experienced, but we're marching headfirst together. I've been tasked to keep this lock updated until the conclusion, or until my untimely demise. I'll be back with more soon. Spears out.